Hey, what's up? It's MaiYang from MixintheDark. I have 10 short stories for you. I've had these stories for a while now, but I just haven't found a good spot for them. Just a note that if you send me a story and they're short, it takes a little longer for me to put out there because it's just way too short for it to be an episode by itself. And so I find that I'm waiting for other similar stories to come through so that they can be put into an episode together. I decided to put them all together because they are very good stories, but they just don't really fit anywhere. I'm currently at my sister's house recording because my husband has a lot of family members from all over the place. They are coming in and they are sleeping at our place, which is totally fine, but it's just way too chaotic for me to record there. They are also very busybodied like me, which is why I like my favorite little mental performance shot, Magic Mind. It keeps me awake. It keeps me creative, so I'm going to keep this conversation going. I was looking at their website a few days ago and noticed that they've got some new things going on. So you've got your original Magic Mind shot, which has worked wonders for me. It usually takes about 3 days to take effect. Some people tell me the Magic Mind hasn't worked for them, and I've told them that they need to be very on time with their drink and commit fully for the full effect. I also find out that there's something called Magic Mind Max, MAXX. Maybe that'll be a better fit for you because it contains a little bit more caffeine for you caffeine enthusiasts. If you've tried this one, you gotta let me know if it's worked for you. Since the original has worked just fine for me, I've actually looked at the other product, Magic Mind Free. It's a stimulant-free mental performance shot created for people like me who are caffeine sensitive or want clarity without the jitters. Sometimes less is more. Anyway, you won't know unless you commit and try Magic Mind to see if it's right for you. Magic Mind is giving my listeners that opportunity. You can get 20% off your Magic Mind purchases. All you need to do is type magicmind.com/mixmay and use my code MIXMAY, MYXMAY, to receive this discount. Let me know what you think of it. It has helped me and maybe it will do the same for you. I also want to note that my sister has this little cute dog. And this little girl is interested in playing. So if you hear little scratches or tiny feet walking around, it's not a ghost. It's just a dog. Anyway, here are 10 scary stories for you. Please enjoy. Story 1. This happened about 3 years ago. At the time, my older sister and I had a job as a waitress at a restaurant. I was a freshman in high school and my older sister was a sophomore. Our shifts would always end at the same time to ensure that we both get home together since we often worked the closing shift. Normally, we would have a ride home, but on this particular day, my sister took her bike to work and didn't want to leave it unlocked at the restaurant. We decided to ride it home that night. We decided that I would pedal the bike and she could sit on the handles in front of me. The ride home wasn't far. It was mostly straight, and the only busy traffic we had to worry about was a big bridge that we would cross that stood over the rushing river below. As we crossed the bridge, which was mostly downhill, I stopped pedaling so that we could just ride down the sidewalks freely. We were so busy laughing and talking that we forgot to feel nervous about how late it was. Since we were above a large body of water, there were brown water bugs flying all over. I squinted my eyes and used my sister as a shield so that I could get us through the bridge safely. As we reached the middle of the bridge, we were laughing about something one of us had said when I caught something in the corner of my eye. It all happened so fast, but I can remember it slowly and clearly. Picture a brown splotchy figure standing on the outside of the bridge railings. It was holding on to the rail. I still remember seeing its individual blotchy fingers on the rail. But the horrible part was that as we passed it, it seemed to lean too far toward the river and suddenly fell over. Sort of like it was caught off guard and accidentally let go of the railing. After that, it was like my brain went into a confused trance. What the heck was that? I looked at my sister to see if she had also seen whatever it was, but she was still laughing. I tried to make sense of it in my head. Did a water bug just get too close to my eye? Was it a trick of the light? I was quiet the rest of the way home. I was afraid and paranoid that whatever it was would follow us home. When we got home, I told my mom about what I saw, hoping that she would just tell me that I was paranoid and tired like any other parent would. But instead, she reminded me of all the suicides that have occurred on that bridge. Story 2. It was just like any normal day. I was with my cousins, and we were going to go fishing with my uncle. When he told us that we were going to fish at Twin Lake, I hesitated. There's a whole backstory about Twin Lake. My uncle said that there was a young Hmong couple who had relationship problems, so the girlfriend went to the bridge and she hung herself there. Surely she still lingers around that area. We were already on the way. I decided not to think too much about all of this. I figured that stories like this are just rumors and old tales. When we reached our destination, there was a path that we had to walk to get to our fishing spot. Once there, you could see the bridge and a little man-made river flow. We had to walk to the other side by going under the bridge. As we reached my uncle's regular fishing spot, we noticed that there were already people there, so we ended up relocating spots. Everything was going just fine until it hit 5 o'clock when the people at my uncle's regular spot finally left for the day. We decided that we would grab our things and go reclaim the original spot. As I was walking, I felt a vibe as if someone was watching me, so I rushed down to my uncle and stayed with them. Then I walked over to the spot where my cousin was with the intention to tell him that I was feeling a bit creeped out. I was just about to talk when my cousin stopped me to hint that I shouldn't tell whatever I experienced just now. The superstition here is that if you talk about what you experienced in the area that you experienced it, you are acknowledging the entity, which opens up an opportunity for them to follow you home. Most people just act like nothing happened until they get out of that area. One of my cousins wanted to climb the bridge, but my other cousin quickly reminded us about the young girl that hung herself there. We decided to forget the whole thing and just fish. It was getting pretty late, and we were supposed to go home already, but my younger cousin wanted to stay a bit longer. I remember we kept fooling around, making ghost-like noises and joking that we woke something up. We completely forgot about the superstition and completely forgot to respect whatever was around there. But, of course, we thought nothing of it. We were kind of standing in a circle at this point, just chatting away. I turned toward one of my cousins, and that's when I saw a girl figure behind my cousin. It wasn't in-your-face type noticeable, but you could clearly see the outlines. Whatever it was had a white dress and long hair. It was as if she was there to observe and listen in on our conversation. I looked away, scared that it would notice me looking. I looked back, and it was gone. My uncle felt the vibe and decided for us to leave to get something to eat. We had to walk under the bridge and through the little creek to get to the other side where our car was parked. I was in the back. For some reason, that night was so dark. I was really scared. As we were walking, my cousin all of a sudden stopped. He got his fishing pole stuck in a strange small crack. We all kept walking, thinking nothing of it and thinking that he would be able to figure it out by the time the last person got to him. We made it to the trail and got to the car. The car ride home was silent until my uncle calmly said he knew we all saw something by the looks on our faces at different times throughout our conversation. I was relieved to hear this because I seriously thought that it was only me that saw the girl. My uncle mentioned seeing the girl behind my cousin, the same sighting I experienced. My uncle was also concerned when he saw another cousin stare up as we were walking and stopped midway through because his fishing pole got stuck. My cousin explained that he saw a quick glimpse of a girl while walking and it startled him, which is why he got his fishing pole stuck. My oldest cousin didn't see anything because the ghost girl stood behind him. But he did say that he felt his neck hairs stand and it felt like someone was behind him. When we got home, my uncle jokingly and also kind of seriously told us to be cautious if we wake up tomorrow and one of us is sick. It would mean she successfully trapped one of our souls. Story 3. When I was younger, probably 10 or so, my older sister requested that myself and my 13-year-old sister go and babysit her kids in the mornings when the adults would go to work. Her house was always fun. They had a movie theater set up, musical instruments around, and a large house to play. I couldn't say no. The kids that we were going to watch were a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old baby. We were very used to watching kids since there were so many of us in the family, we basically had to take care of each other. Anyway, my sister had us sleep in her room since her husband works the night shifts, and she would be heading out for work early in the morning. This was morning time. I didn't have a clock or watch readily available, so I didn't know what time it was. I only knew that it was early because you could still see kids getting picked up for summer school. I remember being curious, so I climbed out of bed to get to the windows to watch the kids that were waiting outside for the bus to pick them up. That was when I heard a floor creaking noise behind me. I turned around. I heard it again. I soon realized that it was coming from the other side of the closed door. I suddenly saw the hallway lights turn on. I could tell from the little strip of light at the bottom of the door where the crack is. Then I saw a shadow as if someone walked over and was standing right outside the door. I called out for my older sister thinking that she was still home and hadn't gone to work yet, but received no reply. I stared at the shadow through the crack, waiting for something to happen. My body froze because I didn't know what to do or what to think. I slowly climbed onto bed, all the while still looking at the shadow through the crack. Suddenly, I heard that same creaking noise that got my attention earlier. The lights from the hallway flipped off, making the shadow no longer visible. Just a few seconds later, I saw the door handle turn and the door slowly pop open. I gasped and then held my breath. Nothing came through. Maybe 20 seconds passed when the door slowly closed again. It didn't close all the way. There was a thin crack between the door and door frame. Even though this was morning time, it was oddly pitch black behind that door. At this point, I was next to my 13-year-old sister who was still fast asleep. I waited, watching the door intently. That was when I saw pure white teeth appear through the crack like it was grinning at me. I panicked hard. I pushed my sister, trying to wake her up. She eventually woke up and asked me what was going on. I pointed at the door and whispered that there was something or someone standing right outside our door. We both looked up, and when we did, the door was now wide open. I didn't know what to think. Now that I'm older, I'm realizing that that house was about a block away from the Jackson Street graveyard in St. Paul, Minnesota. Story 4. My husband and I got married in 2012. He loved telling me scary stories, especially at night because he knows I have a crazy imagination. He told me stories about what him and his family encountered when they were renting a house in Clovis, California, and to this day, I'm still shook to the core. His family was renting a house in Clovis, California. A lot of things have happened in that house, but I'll tell you one story of many. For storytelling purposes, I will be telling the story as if it were mine, but it will be through the perspective of my husband. It was summer of 1997. My mom was sewing Pandora, or flower cloth, by the big window where the natural sunlight was hitting the living room. All of my siblings and I gathered around my mom. We were loud, we were joking, playing, running, and screaming. It was a very normal day. My mom got irritated at us, so she told us to go play by the big room. This room was located all the way to the back of the house. We would have to walk in the hallways, passing all of our bedrooms before reaching the big room. I was walking to the big room when suddenly I thought I saw a dark figure standing in one of the rooms behind the bed. Of course, this was all from the corner of my eyes, so I thought that maybe it was just the trick of the light. Me, being my kid self, decided to ignore since I was more focused on playtime. Once we reached the big room to play, my older sister decided to lock the door. The door had 3 locks and a chain lock. I watched my sister lock all the locks on the door, even the chain lock. We decided on the game of tag. We scattered and started the game. All was fine and everyone was having a great time. I remember running around the room and I kept hearing knocks on the door. I ignored the knocks because I was too busy trying not to be it. The knocks continued for a bit, but eventually stopped, so I forgot about them. After a while, we were all tired from running, so we sat down to catch our breaths. I happened to sit across the door. All of a sudden, we heard a loud bang on the door. Everyone just stared. It was at this moment that the door swung open like someone had kicked it forcefully. I looked over to my older sister. She just looked back at me with a panicked look on her face. We both knew that she had locked all 3 locks, including the chain on the door. Why was it able to open? At the door, I saw my mom staring back at us angrily. I looked around at the rest of my siblings who were all equally shocked. I felt in my heart that the person standing by the door was not my mom. The longer I looked, the longer the lady transformed. It was now a tall lady in a long white gown. She had long, messy black hair with a pale face. Her mouth was wide open, and she was pointing her finger at us. Then, in one blink of an eye, that lady disappeared into thin air. I turned to look at all of my siblings who had already started to run toward the door. I followed quickly behind. We ran to the living room where my mom was sewing her bando. We swarmed around her, so she said, "I thought I told you guys to go to the other room to play." Everyone shook their heads and said they did not want to go back. My older sister finally told my mom what happened in that room. Just to make sure, she also asked my mom, "Mom, just right before we all ran out here, did you come and open the door and watch us play?" My mom replied no, and that she was just sewing the entire time. My mom then assured us that it was nothing and that we all just scared each other, and that was it. No one had the courage to tell my dad. We all just kind of left it at that. A few days later, my mom got very sick. We finally did a shaman ritual for my mom, and the shaman said that there was a lady who passed away in this house that didn't like that we were living there and disturbing her peace. She will continue to cause problems until they move out. After a month, we were finally able to save money and we moved out. None of my siblings like to talk about this incident that happened at that house. We all just went on with our lives as if it never happened. Story 5. The year was 2010. I was 13 years old. I was at the mall in my town alone. I'm used to being alone in large places because I was an only child. I was walking past one shop that faced the cove where the outside doors are. This shop was a local business that contained several knickknacks inside. I was about to walk across the entrance and a sudden, fierce wind blew past me from the inside of the shop. It almost knocked me over. I saw a dark hooded figure that must have been 8 feet tall. It was taller than the doors, and it was 2 inches from my face. It moved very fast, faster than anything I've ever seen before. He was running down the cove toward the door as if he was following someone who was already outside. That's when I started observing what I saw. I could see right through him. It looked as if he ran through the doors, and they shattered after he went through. It was not windy outside that day. I was the only person around to have seen this. I looked around wide-eyed and realized that nobody else had seen or even acknowledged its presence having been there. I asked one person if they'd seen what I just saw. He looked bewildered by my question, and he didn't know what I was talking about. I even looked inside the shop to see if anything had rattled. Everything looked as it should be. People inside acted as if nothing had happened. My mom is very intrigued by the paranormal, so as soon as I found her, I told her everything I saw in detail. She didn't even believe me. Years later, I would bring it up in conversation with friends, and still, no one would believe me. I know what I saw, and I can relive the fear, wonder, and total confusion I felt at that moment. It was truly terrifying. Story 6. I woke up due to some ruckus coming from outside. I came out of the room and walked to the living room to find that a bunch of my relatives were all present. I was still in my mind trying to figure out what was happening. I guess we were just having another gathering like we always do. I walked to the kitchen and through the door to the backyard and saw more uncles and aunties. It feels great to see everyone. Always a good vibe to have everyone over. Then to my left, a random guy in his late 40s to early 50s approached me and he said, "Tu, ba tu yo tsa kya pe mo na?" "Son, get ready. It's almost time for us to leave." I was confused and lost, so I asked him where exactly we were going. He did not respond with a single word, but with his finger, he was pointing at a wooden box. For some odd reason, I didn't think much of it and I just started getting ready. I cleaned up myself and put on my suit. After I was done putting on my shoe, another random older gentleman came up to me. He said, "Looks like you're ready. Let's get going." He then sat down the stepping stool next to the coffin. I climbed up the step as if I was leaning over to get in, when suddenly an uncle of mine came out of nowhere and grabbed my arm. I knew this uncle. He said, "Tu, ko ora china. Luno chiyo ko leo. Luno yo dolu tu." "Son, what are you doing? This is not yours. It's for someone else." It felt so real because I could have sworn I was already awake. This dream took place almost 10 years ago, but it's one of those dreams that I will never forget. Most Hmong folks believe that if you dream of someone taking you, especially in this case where someone is taking you into their coffin, they want to take your spirit with them to the world of the dead, which means in the world we live in, your body will most likely become sick and die. It's all a superstition, but it's a good thing the bait wasn't taken. Story 7. The time was around 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. I couldn't get any sleep. Neither could my dog. I decided to take my dog for a walk at a nearby park. I know the park is closed after sunset, but I figured no one would notice me walking my dog on the unlit paved trails of the park at night. I walked my dog to the nearby park under the cover of darkness. There was no one else at the park. I walked my dog on the unlit paved trail that circled the center picnic house. My dog and I made it halfway on the circular trail. We came by the area filled with tall pine trees. I noticed a gray shape by the trunks of the pine trees. As the gray shape moved into the area near the parking lot lights north of the pine trees, I froze. The parking lot lights illuminated enough of the gray shape that I could tell what it was. The gray shape is a woman's head with dark hair. There wasn't enough light to see how long her hair was. The parts that made me scared the most were her pale gray skin and her white eyes that have no irises and pupils. My dog didn't make a sound. I was so glad my dog kept quiet because whatever that lady is, I did not want to get chased down by her. I quietly whispered to my dog to continue walking. He and I took a trail that led to the west exit of the park. I was glad there were some cars traveling on the street with headlights on as I walked my dog home. I would occasionally glance behind my back to see if my dog and I were being followed by that scary woman at the park. My dog and I made it safely back to the house. I decided that next time I should just walk the dog around the neighborhood if it's nighttime. Story 8. This was around the time when I was still in elementary school. My friends at the time, Jen and Tess, and myself were at the schoolyard talking and just having a good time. It was all fun and games until Jen suggested that we play a game. I was naive and did not know that this was a bad idea. Tess and I agreed, and so Jen took out a piece of paper and made a makeshift Ouija board. We asked questions for a few minutes until we got bored of it since nothing was happening. I don't think we said goodbye, which I now know was a really bad idea. Soon after we were done, I began to feel uneasy. The next few days were very weird. I felt like there was something watching me every time I was alone in a room. I kept hearing whispers and footsteps in the house. This was new to me. At first, I had no clue why these things were happening, but soon enough, I put two and two together. One day at school, I was hanging out with Jen and Tess. I decided to ask them if they've been having weird occurrences too. To my dismay, they hadn't. Of course, I couldn't tell my parents because if anyone knows Hispanic parents, they do not play when it comes to paranormal stuff. I also could not tell her because my mom had specifically told me not to mess with this ritual stuff that I like to watch. I decided to just leave it alone and hoped that whatever it was would go away. As you can probably guess, it didn't. I wanted to tell this story because I think whatever we conjured that day still follows me after all these years. Is that even possible? Does anyone have any insight on this? Story 9. I was 10 when I experienced my first paranormal activity in my old home. I shared a room with my parents and my siblings. This was just how we grew up. I tend to face the closet when I sleep, but this particular time, I remembered that I had my eyes open. I just couldn't sleep, and I was feeling irritated. That was when I thought I saw someone in there. I squinted and focused on the figure. I saw a lady in traditional Hmong clothing standing inside of my closet. She had her long black hair covering her face, and she was really tall. She stood very still. I thought I was just dreaming, so I rubbed my eyes, but she was still there, standing eerily still. I screamed for my mom, and she asked me why I was screaming, so I told her what I saw. My fear poured in the form of tears. I cried endlessly to my mom. She finally got up and went to open the lights, but there was no one there. It was just a normal closet. There wasn't even anything in there that would give a similar shape to what I saw. We slept with the lights on that night. This other incident happened on a separate night. It was about 12 a.m. at the time, and only my uncle, my older brother, and sister and I were up. My uncle was cooking for himself, so he wasn't in the room with us. I was drawing on my uncle's desk when I felt something bad was going to happen. I took my younger sister to the door. All of a sudden, a loud scream came through the blinds. The same moment, a huge wind rushed through. I couldn't tell if it was a woman's scream or a man's scream. I knew my younger sister heard it too, so I ran to my oldest brother's room. I found that he was still playing games with his headphones on. His room was just a few feet from my uncle's room, so I was surprised that he didn't hear that loud scream, considering that his windows were also opened. One thing I know for sure is that I know it couldn't have been my brother. He rarely made noises even when he games. To this day, I still wonder who screamed through the window. Story 10. A couple of years ago, my girlfriend at the time and I went fishing. It was getting pretty late. I could tell my girlfriend was getting bored. We were there for a couple of hours with no luck. I still wanted to fish, so I told her to stay there while I ran to grab us some drinks. I got drinks and headed back. While walking back, I noticed she was talking with this family of 4, a father, mother, daughter, and son. When I walked up to them, I asked them what was going on. She told me that the father was telling her that there was a secret place just down the trail if we wanted to follow them, since we hadn't been having any luck at our spot. Right after she said that, the father turned to me and said that he had been coming to this location to fish for years, and there was a secret spot down by the trail and he would be happy to show us. I'm not sure, but for some reason, something felt off. I didn't know what it was, but my girlfriend said that we should try that secret place out. I didn't want to, but because of her sudden interest in wanting to fish and me wanting to continue fishing, I said okay. I told the father, sure, lead the way. We'll follow from behind. The family turned toward this trail and started walking. We grabbed our fishing poles and baits, and we slowly walked behind them, following at a fair distance. This was when I started to really look at them. I noticed the mom's tag on her shirt was flipped inside out. In Japanese culture, there's a tradition where when one dies, you put their clothes on right side over left, which is the reversed way of how the living wears their garments. That's how you differentiate the dead from the living. When I saw her shirt, I then noticed her skirt, and all their clothes were inside out. Even the shoes were worn on the wrong side of their feet. I got goosebumps and started reaching for my girlfriend's hand. I held her hand and whispered to her, "Let's run. I'm going to count to 3. I didn't even wait for her to respond. I counted quickly and we ran back to our car. I helped her get in the car and I ran to my side and got in. I started my car, but it was stalling and clicking. She asked me why we left in such a rush and that she thought I wanted to fish more. I asked her, "Didn't you see their clothes? They were all reversed." Right after I said that, she started clapping her hands with the back of her hands and laughing hysterically, saying, "Yes, you got it, yay!" She started laughing creepily and then just fell back on the seat and she knocked out. I tried starting the car again, and when I looked in the back rearview mirror, I saw the family standing at the back of my car, just looking at me. The car started, and it started reversing toward them. I pressed the gas pedal hard, and it wouldn't go for a while. Finally, it started going forward. I drove us out of there and went home. The next day, I asked my girlfriend about yesterday, and she told me that she doesn't remember anything, not even how we got home. I started researching the area where we went fishing and found out that there was a family that drove their car into that river, and not one of them made it out.
Thank you for listening to Mix in the Dark. I am your host, MaiYang. Mix in the Dark is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast series. If you have a story that you would like to share, please send it to myxinthedark@gmail.com. If there's a story that you really enjoyed, feel free to hit up my tip jar on Venmo. Just search Mix in the Dark on the business tab.